Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Under the scorching sun, Michael stepped off the bus onto the unpaved driveway, his heart heavy as he confronted the painful reality of his circumstances. Betrayed by his parents' rejection, he stood alone with his hastily packed bag, filled with cherished belongings that were now deemed too precious to remain hidden. His eyes met a sight so different from the cold, austere modern house of his parents. A grand, antique Victorian mansion, painted in a mesmerizing blend of teal and cream, surrounded by vibrant flowers, as if it had emerged from an artist's canvas. As Michael approached the residence, the front door magically swung open, revealing a figure descending the stairs, clad in elegant attire adorned with delicate fabrics and ornamental bracelets. She wrapped her arms around Michael in an embrace that smelled of sandalwood and vanilla. "Let me look at you." She held him at arm's length, her kohl-lined eyes sweeping over him critically. "You look exhausted, poor thing. Come inside. I've made lemonade." The interior of Aunt Vivian's home matched her eclectic personality. Walls lined with bookshelves interrupted by framed vintage fashion illustrations, overstuffed furniture draped with richly patterned throws, and surfaces cluttered with collections of antique perfume bottles and art glass. "Your room is upstairs, first door on the right," she said, taking the duffel from his hands. "Why don't you freshen up while I pour us drinks?" Michael nodded, unable to find words through the lump in his throat. He navigated the staircase, trailing his fingers along the mahogany banister, wondering if this punishment might actually be salvation. The guest room had been prepared with obvious care, fresh flowers on the nightstand, windows open to catch the late afternoon breeze, a plush robe laid across the foot of the bed. Michael sat on the edge of the mattress, head in his hands, wondering how his carefully constructed life had imploded so quickly. Just 3 days ago, he'd been Michael Henderson, 26-year-old marketing coordinator, dutiful son, keeper of secrets. Then his mother had found the collection while organizing his apartment during an unexpected visit. Silk blouses, A-line skirts, and dresses Michael had carefully selected from second-hand shops and hidden in the back of his closet. The items weren't particularly revealing or scandalous, just clothing that felt right, that allowed him to express the person he knew himself to be. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "May I come in?" Aunt Vivian called. "Yes," Michael answered, hurriedly wiping his eyes. She entered carrying a tray with 2 glasses of lemonade, studying Michael's defeated posture. Without a word, she set the tray down and unzipped the duffel bag. Michael lunged forward. "Please don't!" But Aunt Vivian was already lifting out a crumpled blue silk blouse, shaking her head at the wrinkles. "This is pure silk, darling. It deserves better treatment." She carefully laid it aside and pulled out a black pencil skirt, similarly crushed from hasty packing. Michael sat frozen, mortification burning through him. This wasn't how he'd imagined his first day with his mother's eccentric older sister, watching her discover his deepest secret. "These are all wrong for you," she said finally, surveying the pile of clothing she'd extracted. Michael's chest tightened. "I'm sorry. I can get rid of them. Not because they're women's clothes," Aunt Vivian interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. "Because they're the wrong colors for your skin tone, the wrong cuts for your frame, and frankly, darling, they're cheaply made." She held up a polyester blouse against his chest. "See? This washes you out completely, and these skirts would never hang properly on your hips without the right foundation garments." Michael stared at her, mouth slightly open. "Close your mouth, dear. You look like a trout." She folded the blouse with practiced movements. "Your mother called me in hysterics, claiming you needed intervention. What you need is a proper wardrobe consultation." "You're not upset?" Aunt Vivian settled herself on the bed beside him, taking his hand in her bejeweled fingers.
"Michael, I've spent 40 years in the fashion industry. I've dressed every type of body and personality imaginable. Clothing is how we present ourselves to the world. It should be honest and authentic."
Michael felt tears threatening again.
"My parents think I'm sick."
"Your parents have always been painfully conventional." She squeezed his hand. "Tell me, when you wear these clothes, how do you feel?" The question hung between them, simple yet profound. Michael took a deep breath. "Like myself," he whispered. "Like the person I've always been inside. Like Malia." Aunt Vivian's smile widened. "Malia, beautiful name. Drink your lemonade, get some rest, and tomorrow we'll go shopping. If you're going to be Malia, you deserve the right wardrobe for it." That night, Michael slept better than he had in years, wrapped in the knowledge of simple acceptance. Morning arrived with sunlight streaming through gauzy curtains and the scent of coffee wafting upstairs. Michael found Aunt Vivian in her kitchen, dressed in wide-legged cream linen pants and a coral silk blouse, consulting a list at her marble island. "Good morning," she said, pushing a steaming mug toward him. "I've been making a plan of attack. We'll start with foundation garments. Proper undergarments make all the difference in how clothes drape on the body. Then we'll build outward. Basics first, statement pieces later." Michael gripped the coffee mug tightly.
This is incredibly generous, but I can't let you spend money on me."
Aunt Vivian raised one perfectly arched eyebrow.
"Consider it 30 years of missed birthday presents. Besides, I spent decades dressing models and celebrities. Helping my niece find her style is much more meaningful."
Niece. The word sent a warm shiver through Michael's chest. 2 hours later, they were walking into an upscale boutique where the sales associates greeted Aunt Vivian by name. She introduced Michael as "my niece Malia, who needs absolutely everything." The personal shopping experience was transformative. Aunt Vivian directed the process with the authority of a general commanding troops, selecting garments, dismissing others, explaining her choices at every step. "Always begin with proper foundations," she instructed, selecting seamless, shaping undergarments. These will create the illusion of curves where needed and smooth lines elsewhere. In the dressing room, Michael emerged as Malia, tentative at first, then with growing confidence as each new outfit revealed more of her true self. The brown hair that had always hung limply around Michael's face was swept back, revealing Malia's delicate features and expressive eyes.
"Try this."
Aunt Vivian handed over a crimson wrap dress with 3/4 sleeves. Malia slipped it on, securing the belt at her waist. The fabric skimmed over the shaping garments, creating a feminine silhouette. She stared at her reflection, barely recognizing the person looking back. Poised, elegant, authentic. "The crimson is perfect with your brown hair and complexion," Aunt Vivian noted with satisfaction. "You have a winter palette. Jewel tones will always flatter you." They selected black cigarette pants that elongated Malia's legs, silky blouses in emerald, sapphire, and amethyst, and versatile skirts that could transition from office to evening. Aunt Vivian insisted on proper accessories, belts that defined the waist, scarves that added color near the face, and delicate jewelry that complemented without overwhelming. Fashion is architecture, Aunt Vivian explained as they moved through the store. It's about proportion, balance, and creating the right lines for your frame. By late afternoon, Malia was surrounded by shopping bags and gift boxes, overwhelmed by the generosity, but also by the profound gift of being seen for who she truly was. "One last stop," Aunt Vivian announced, steering her toward a high-end shoe boutique. Inside, she immediately requested a selection of pumps in size 11, waving away Malia's embarrassment. "Never apologize for the body you have," she advised. "The right accessories draw attention where you want it. The wrong ones draw attention to what you're trying to hide." After trying several pairs, Aunt Vivian presented Malia with black patent leather pumps with a sensible 3-inch heel. "These are your signature shoes," she declared. "Every woman needs a pair that makes her feel invincible." Standing in those heels, Malia felt exactly that. Invincible, complete, authentic. Back at the Victorian house, they arranged Malia's new wardrobe in the guest room closet, creating outfit combinations for different occasions. "Tomorrow," Aunt Vivian announced, "we'll address hair and makeup. I've booked appointments with my stylist and cosmetics artist. They're discreet and talented." Malia stared at the row of beautiful garments. "I don't know how to thank you." "Live truthfully," Aunt Vivian replied simply. "That's all anyone can really do." The following day brought another transformation. At the salon, a stylist named Carlo assessed Malia's brown hair with a professional eye. "We'll keep the length but add layers to frame your face," he decided, "and side-swept bangs to soften your forehead." The results were stunning. The same brown hair now styled to enhance Malia's features rather than hide them. The makeup session that followed was equally educational, with the artist demonstrating techniques to highlight Malia's best features while minimizing others. "Makeup is an art, not a mask," the artist explained. "The goal is enhancement, not disguise." By the end of the week, Malia had amassed not only a wardrobe, but also the knowledge to present herself authentically to the world. Each morning, she woke in Aunt Vivian's guest room and dressed in clothing that reflected her true self, practicing makeup application and hairstyling until the routine became second nature. "You've been here nearly a month," Aunt Vivian remarked one evening as they shared dinner on her garden patio. "Have you given thought to what comes next?" Malia set down her wine glass. The question had been hovering in the background of her mind, but the sanctuary of Aunt Vivian's home had allowed her to postpone confronting it. "I can't hide here forever," she admitted. "But I don't know how to go back to my life as Malia." "Who says you need to go back?" Aunt Vivian challenged. "Perhaps it's time to move forward instead." The conversation sparked a plan. Malia would need to rebuild her life, find a new job, a new apartment, create legal documentation that matched her identity. The challenges seemed insurmountable until Aunt Vivian introduced her to a network of resources and supporters. "I've collected more than clothing over my lifetime," she explained. "I've gathered people, kind, resourceful people who understand that life's journey isn't always straightforward." Through Aunt Vivian's connections, Malia consulted with an attorney who specialized in identity documentation, a career counselor familiar with workplace transition, and a therapist who could provide necessary psychological assessments for medical transition options, should Malia choose that path. "Think of it as project management," Aunt Vivian suggested. "Break the overwhelming into manageable tasks." The first task was securing employment. Malia had worked in marketing for 3 years as Michael, developing skills in digital strategy and content creation. Aunt Vivian introduced her to Eleonora Vicente, creative director at a boutique marketing agency known for its inclusive workplace policies. "Your portfolio is impressive," Eleonora remarked during their interview, reviewing the digital samples Malia had prepared. "We have several clients in the fashion and beauty space who could benefit from your aesthetic sensibility." The job offer came with a salary that would support independent living and health insurance that covered transition-related care. The second task, finding a new home, proved more challenging until one of Aunt Vivian's former models mentioned a garden apartment available in her converted brownstone. "The neighborhood is safe, the commute to your new office would be reasonable, and the landlady understands discretion," Aunt Vivian noted as they toured the space. "Plus, the natural light is perfect for your complexion." Within 6 weeks of arriving at Aunt Vivian's with a hastily packed duffel bag of ill-fitting women's clothes, Malia had secured employment, housing, and a pathway to legal recognition of her identity. The morning she was to move into her new apartment, she found Aunt Vivian in the garden, pruning roses in wide-brimmed hat and gardening gloves. "I've been thinking," Aunt Vivian said, without looking up from her task, "that the guest room should remain yours whenever you need it. Holidays, difficult days, celebrations. This home is your sanctuary." Malia knelt beside her aunt, heedless of the dirt staining her new emerald silk blouse. "You saved my life." "Nonsense," Aunt Vivian replied, though her voice had softened. "You saved your own life when you decided to live truthfully. I merely provided suitable attire for the journey." The moving truck was small. Malia was essentially starting over with only her new wardrobe and a few personal keepsakes. As they supervised the loading of boxes, Aunt Vivian handed her a wrapped package. "One last gift," she explained, "for your new beginning." Inside was a leather-bound journal with Malia's name embossed in gold on the cover. The first page bore an inscription in Aunt Vivian's elegant handwriting. "Fashion fades, style is eternal, but authenticity is divine. Write your story boldly." Settling into her new apartment that evening, Malia arranged her clothes in the closet according to Aunt Vivian's organizational system. Colors grouped together, pieces hung by category, shoes aligned on custom racks. The crimson wrap dress held a place of honor, a reminder of the first moment she had truly seen herself. The following Monday marked her first day at the new marketing agency. Malia selected her outfit with care: black cigarette pants, a royal blue silk blouse that brought out the warm tones in her brown hair, and the black patent leather pumps that made her feel invincible. She applied her makeup with practiced precision, styling her hair in soft waves that framed her face. The woman who looked back from the mirror was confident, polished, and authentically herself, a far cry from the defeated person who had stepped off a bus with a duffel bag of wrinkled clothes and crushed hopes. The office culture proved as inclusive as promised. Colleagues referred to her as Malia without hesitation. Clients respected her expertise, and her creative contributions were valued. For the first time, her professional success wasn't shadowed by the exhaustion of maintaining a false persona. 3 months into her new position, Malia received a letter from her parents. It sat unopened on her kitchen counter for days, a rectangular reminder of rejection. "You don't have to read it," Aunt Vivian advised during their weekly dinner. "Protecting your peace is not the same as hiding." But Malia eventually opened it, seated in her favorite reading chair, wearing the crimson wrap dress for courage. The letter was brief, her father's handwriting expressing confusion rather than understanding, requesting contact but offering no apology. "They're trying, in their limited way," Aunt Vivian observed when Malia shared the contents.
The question is whether their effort deserves your energy. Malia decided to respond with boundaries rather than expectations. She sent a photo of herself, professional, dignified, unmistakably Malia, with a note explaining that she was thriving and would consider contact when they could address her by her name and recognize her authentic self. The response came from her mother, a hesitant phone call where she stumbled over pronouns but made visible effort. The relationship remained fragile, defined by tentative steps rather than the unconditional acceptance Aunt Vivian had demonstrated, but it was a beginning. As summer transitioned to fall, Malia's transition progressed in parallel. She began hormone therapy under medical supervision, documenting the subtle changes in her journal, softer skin, emotional shifts, physical transformations that aligned her outer appearance with her inner reality. The brown hair that had once been Michael's most forgettable feature became Malia's crowning glory, growing longer and taking on new luster with proper care. Her legal documentation gradually updated. First, a court-approved name change, then revised identification documents. Each administrative milestone represented hours of paperwork and bureaucratic navigation, but each also represented another step toward a congruent life. 1 year after her arrival at Aunt Vivian's doorstep, Malia hosted a dinner party in her apartment to mark the anniversary of her rebirth. The guest list included Aunt Vivian, colleagues who had become friends, and neighbors who had welcomed her without reservation. She prepared the space with attention to detail. Fresh flowers arranged in vintage vases borrowed from Aunt Vivian's collection, candles placed to cast flattering light, music selected to encourage conversation without overwhelming it. She wore the crimson wrap dress, now tailored to her slightly altered figure, with the patent leather pumps that had become her signature. "A toast," Aunt Vivian announced, raising her glass when all were gathered around Malia's dining table. "To authenticity, which is the highest form of respect we can pay ourselves." The evening flowed with conversation and laughter, a celebration not just of Malia's journey, but of the community that had formed around her. As guests departed, leaving Aunt Vivian and Malia alone, they settled onto the small balcony overlooking the street below. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when they sent me away to you?" Malia asked, watching the city lights flicker against the darkness. Aunt Vivian's bracelets jangled as she gestured expansively. "I didn't have specific expectations. I simply knew that proper support can transform disaster into opportunity. Like proper foundation garments transform a silhouette?" "Precisely," Aunt Vivian smiled. "Life, like fashion, is about working with what exists to create something beautiful." The following week brought an unexpected opportunity. Eleonora selected Malia to represent the agency at a major marketing conference in Chicago. The assignment included presenting their latest campaign for a cosmetics client, a responsibility that reflected growing professional trust. "Pack versatile pieces," Aunt Vivian advised during a pre-trip consultation. "Hotel lighting is notoriously unflattering." The conference represented Malia's first business travel since her transition, bringing practical challenges she hadn't anticipated, navigating airport security with identification that matched her appearance but not her anatomy, selecting professional attire that projected authority while honoring her identity, managing medication schedules across time zones. Aunt Vivian's voice echoed in her mind. "Fashion is problem-solving. Find the solution that works for your body and circumstances." The presentation proved successful, attracting potential clients and industry recognition. Colleagues from competing agencies approached afterward, business cards extended with job inquiries. Malia collected them with polite interest, though her loyalty to Eleonora's firm remained strong. During the networking reception that evening, Malia found herself engaged in conversation with a distinguished woman
whose silver hair was cut in a precise bob. "Your presentation was exceptional," the woman noted. "Particularly your insights on authentic messaging." "Thank you," Malia replied, accepting the compliment with the grace Aunt Vivian had taught her. "Authenticity in marketing requires recognizing that consumers respond to truth even when it's imperfect. Like people," the woman observed. "I'm Catherine Wells, by the way. I lead the marketing department at Lumiere Cosmetics." Malia recognized the name immediately. Lumiere was a prestige brand known for its inclusive campaigns and ethical formulations. "Your recent campaign featuring diverse skin tones was revolutionary." Catherine smiled. "It was also controversial among our more traditional board members. Change always encounters resistance, doesn't it?" The conversation continued through dinner, shifting from professional to personal as Catherine shared her own journey breaking barriers in the beauty industry. "We're launching a new division focused on universal beauty," Catherine explained over dessert. "Products designed for all gender expressions. We need a marketing director who understands that beauty isn't about conforming to standards, but about self-expression." The job offer arrived formally the following week. A director position with creative control, substantial salary increase, and relocation assistance to the company's headquarters in San Francisco. Malia arranged meetings with Aunt Vivian and Eleonora, seeking guidance before making her decision. "Take it," Eleonora advised without hesitation. "This opportunity aligns perfectly with your talents and perspective. We'll miss you professionally, but doors like this don't open often." Aunt Vivian's counsel was more nuanced. "San Francisco would offer community and resources that would support your journey. The position would provide financial security and creative fulfillment. But remember, geographic distance doesn't diminish connection to chosen family." 2 months later, Malia stood in her empty apartment, the crimson wrap dress and other carefully selected garments packed in proper garment bags, the patent leather pumps nestled in their original box. The journal Aunt Vivian had given her was filled with entries documenting her metamorphosis from Michael to Malia, physical changes, emotional growth, professional achievements, and personal revelations. Her parents had visited once before her departure, an awkward but significant step toward reconciliation. Her father had struggled with her name but had made genuine effort to see the daughter before him rather than the son he had expected. Her mother had brought a small gift, a silver locket containing a photograph of Malia as a child, a recognition that her identity had always existed beneath the surface. The moving company had already collected her belongings for transport to San Francisco. All that remained was saying goodbye to Aunt Vivian, who had transformed from reluctant guardian to essential mentor. They met at their favorite restaurant, Aunt Vivian, resplendent in emerald silk that complemented Malia's sapphire blouse. "I've been thinking about what makes a good farewell gift," Aunt Vivian said after they had ordered. "Something meaningful, but not sentimental, practical, but not pedestrian." "You've given me everything already," Malia protested. "My entire wardrobe, my confidence, my freedom to be myself." "Nonsense. Those were investments, not gifts." Aunt Vivian withdrew an envelope from her handbag. "This is my actual gift." Inside was a deed to Aunt Vivian's Victorian house, transferred to Malia's name with a life estate provision allowing Aunt Vivian continued residence. "I have no children," Aunt Vivian explained. "And while this isn't a crown jewel of real estate, it has been a sanctuary. It should pass to someone who understands its value." Malia struggled to find words. "I can't accept." "You can and you will," Aunt Vivian interrupted firmly. "Consider it insurance for both of us. You'll always have a home if California proves disappointing, and I'll have someone to ensure this place doesn't fall into the hands of developers who would paint it grage and install smart appliances." The farewell at the airport was brief by mutual agreement. Neither woman wanted a dramatic scene. "Remember," Aunt Vivian said, straightening the collar of Malia's travel blazer, "style isn't what you wear, but how you live. Make choices that honor your authentic self, even when they're difficult." San Francisco welcomed Malia with fog-shrouded hills and Victorian architecture reminiscent of Aunt Vivian's home. Her company-arranged apartment offered views of the bay and proximity to her new office. The position at Lumiere Cosmetics provided creative challenges and the opportunity to influence beauty standards through inclusive marketing. The transition wasn't without difficulties, establishing new medical providers, building social connections, navigating a city known for its steep learning curves both literally and figuratively. But the foundation Aunt Vivian had helped her build proved sturdy enough to support this next chapter. 6 months into her California life, Malia found herself preparing for Lumiere's biggest product launch of the year, a comprehensive collection designed without gender constraints. The marketing campaign she had developed featured diverse models of all gender expressions, ages, and ethnic backgrounds, unified by the tagline, "Beauty is authenticity." The night before the launch party, she stood before her closet, considering options. The crimson-wrapped dress caught her eye, a reminder of her first day truly seeing herself reflected in the mirror. Beside it hung newer acquisitions, including a tailored midnight blue jumpsuit she had purchased for professional events. Malia selected the jumpsuit but paired it with the patent leather pumps that had been her first gift from Aunt Vivian. As she dressed the following evening, she thought about the journey from Michael's hastily packed duffel bag to Malia's carefully curated wardrobe, from shame to celebration, from hiding to visibility. The launch event transformed a gallery space into an interactive exploration of beauty across cultures and gender expressions. Catherine Wells introduced Malia to the assembled media representatives, investors, and industry leaders. "Our marketing director understands that authentic representation isn't a trend, but a truth," Catherine stated. "Malia Henderson has brought that perspective to every aspect of this campaign." Taking the microphone, Malia surveyed the audience. Her brown hair, now grown to shoulder length, was styled in loose waves that framed her face. Her makeup enhanced rather than concealed, following the principles she had learned from Aunt Vivian's cosmetics artist. "Beauty has traditionally been defined by exclusion," she began. "Who fits the standard and who doesn't? Our approach inverts that premise, recognizing that beauty exists in authenticity rather than conformity." As she elaborated on the campaign's creative direction, Malia noticed a familiar figure at the back of the room. Aunt Vivian, elegant in black silk, watching with evident pride. The presentation concluded to enthusiastic applause. Campaign's projections suggested record sales and positive press coverage. As the crowd dispersed into networking clusters, Malia made her way to Aunt Vivian. "Surprise," Aunt Vivian said, accepting Malia's embrace. "I decided that seeing your triumphant moment in person was worth the cross-country flight. You should have told me. I would have arranged proper accommodations. And rob myself of the dramatic entrance? Never." Aunt Vivian linked her arm through Malia's. "Besides, I wanted to see you in your element without preparation. The results are impressive." They moved through the gallery, stopping occasionally for Malia to introduce Aunt Vivian to colleagues. Catherine Wells approached with champagne flutes, offering one to each woman. "You must be the famous Aunt Vivian," Catherine said. "Malia speaks of you often." "All fabrications, I assure you," Aunt Vivian replied with a wink. "Though I do take credit for those shoes. The right foundation creates the proper silhouette." Later, after the event concluded and they had returned to Malia's apartment, Aunt Vivian settled onto the sofa with the contented sigh of a traveler reaching destination. "When I received that frantic call from your mother claiming you needed intervention, I never imagined this outcome." she admitted. Though perhaps I hoped for it. Malia slipped off the patent leather pumps, flexing her feet after hours of standing. What did you imagine? That you might find the courage to live truthfully, that the right environment might nurture rather than suppress your authentic self. Aunt Vivian gestured toward the window, where the city lights sparkled against the night sky.
You've created a beautiful life, Malia.
The visit lasted a week, days filled with sightseeing and evenings spent in conversation. Aunt Vivian evaluated Malia's expanded wardrobe with professional interest, approving new acquisitions and suggesting modifications to others. They visited Lumiere's corporate offices, where Aunt Vivian charmed executives with industry anecdotes from her decades in fashion. On their final evening together, they dined at a restaurant overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge, watching fog roll across the water as sunset painted the sky in vivid hues. I've been thinking about our first shopping trip, Malia said, twirling pasta around her fork. How transformative it was to have someone see me, really see me, for the first time. Clothing is powerful that way, Aunt Vivian replied. It can reveal or conceal, depending on intention. It wasn't just the clothes, Malia countered. It was having someone believe that I deserved to be seen authentically. You gave me permission to exist as myself. Aunt Vivian's expression softened. Permission is the wrong framing. You always had the right to exist authentically. What you needed was support while claiming that right. The following morning, Malia accompanied Aunt Vivian to the airport. They stood near the security checkpoint, surrounded by travelers rushing toward destinations. Next time, come for a longer stay, Malia urged. There's still so much of the city I want to show you. Perhaps in spring, Aunt Vivian agreed, when my roses won't suffer from neglect. Their farewell embrace conveyed volumes without words. Gratitude, respect, affection forged through transformation. As Aunt Vivian moved toward security, Malia called after her. The crimson dress still fits perfectly, she said. Every time I wear it, I remember that first moment of recognition. Aunt Vivian turned, her expression luminous with pride. That's the magic of the right garment, my dear. It never really goes out of style when it reveals your truest self. Watching Aunt Vivian disappear into the security line, Malia reflected on the journey from that first bus arrival at a Victorian house to this moment of established independence. The brown-haired woman in patent leather pumps standing in a San Francisco airport was connected to the frightened person clutching a duffel bag of ill-fitting clothes. But they were no longer the same. Malia walked out of the airport into California sunshine, her stride confident in comfortable flats selected for the day's activities. Her phone chimed with messages, colleagues confirming campaign metrics, friends suggesting weekend plans, Catherine proposing coffee to discuss expansion strategies. Each notification represented connection, purpose, belonging, elements of a life constructed with intention rather than obligation. The journey hadn't ended. Transition was ongoing in both physical and metaphorical senses, but the foundation had been properly established, creating a silhouette that authentically reflected the person within. That evening, Malia opened the leather journal Aunt Vivian had given her and began a new entry. Today marks 2 years since I stepped off a bus, carrying inadequate clothing and excessive shame. The clothing has improved considerably. The shame has disappeared entirely. The brown-haired woman in the crimson dress continued writing her story, boldly and authentically, each page a testament to transformation made possible through acceptance, support, and the courage to live truthfully.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!